Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening to our participant, and we are glad to have Mr. Ken Yap from Springer Nature, right? So for this last session, Mr. Ken will talk about the Springer Nature and open access publishing, and a bit a bit of consultation at the end of the session. All right. So this session will be recorded. Okay, and then if you want to view the recording later, just inform us at the library, and then we will share it to you later. And I think without further ado, I will pass this session to Mr. Ken.
Thank you. Terima kasih. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining my session today. I think some of you may have already attended several sessions, and I think that's really today is a wonderful opportunity to get to interact with so many publishers, and I'm very thankful for your participation in my session today as well. I hope you can hear me clearly, and allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kent Yap, and I represent the publisher Springer Nature, locally here from our KL office. My responsibilities are basically, from an institutional sales perspective, is to work together with institutions like yours at UniMap, your library, and even you as individual authors, with regards to accessing content for you to do your work, and as well nowadays, especially in our topic today, around the realms of open access. So I'm not aware of how the format was for the other sessions that you may have attended today from the different stakeholders and publishers. But for my session, I just wanted to give you a laydown on how things will work out. As we have about 1 hour, what I intend to do is I have some slides, which I will probably try and take about 30 minutes to go through. And I would like to leave the second half of the session for you as the community to actually, shoot me questions or try to ask me something that you're unsure about with regards to open access. And of course, you may of course ask me about anything that you see on the slides as well. So thank you for joining, and we can begin. Okay, so first, let me introduce who we are. Again, like I said, I represent this academic and research publisher called Springer Nature. We've been around for more than 180 years, and we're a rather large publisher. You may have recognized us from the different brands or imprints that you may have seen around the campus, especially in the library, or throughout your career as students, researchers, or even lecturers yourselves. For example, Springer Nature is a brand of our group, and there's also Springer, Palgrave, the Nature brand, BMC, Macmillan, and etc. etc. So as the company's mission is actually to open doors to discovery, and we do that by basically doing two things, essentially. First is providing access to trusted knowledge, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum is, once you've done your research, basically helping you as researchers to disseminate your findings through our portfolio of our publications, right? So how do we do that? And why we do it is because we want to accelerate the world's solution to the world's greatest challenges. As researchers yourselves, you are probably working on different problems or issues and trying to find solutions for those things. And as an international and academic publisher, we support that overall drive to solve the world's challenges through dissemination of the work through our portfolio of publications. So as I said, you may have recognized us from the different brands or imprints that we may have played a part in your career, or even today as you are active researchers or students yourself. And these are just a number of those brands that I've mentioned. So we've been around for quite a long time. And over the years, of course, we've transitioned all the way from as a little bookshop in Germany, and throughout time, of course, constantly innovating as a company and evolving up to today, where we are, like I said, one of the leading academic and research publishers around. And it would not be possible for us to to be a company that has lasted that long without innovation through technology. And what that has also mean is that we've also transitioned from basically a printed medium all the way to what it is now in the digital space, right? We're also a publisher that is heavily emphasizing, or we do care a lot about the SDGs, which I believe many of you, if not all of you, are also care about. And the work that you do also addresses the sustainable development goals. So we're a publisher that's committed to open access, and in line with today's the theme of all of the sessions you've been attending today. And we've made a commitment to basically progressing in the space of open access. And in fact, as per our latest annual report for last year, we are very happy and very proud to showcase or to tell the world that of 50% of the primary research that we've published throughout all of our portfolio is or was published as open access, and those article or open access articles have 6.3 more citation. Have an average of 6.3 citations per article. And aside from open access journal publications, we also publish open access books. And relating to the SDG earlier, I mentioned 57% of all SDG related articles were also published as open access. So in line with today's theme, open science and open access, I think it's important for us to realize or to understand why it matters. And to do that, we need to understand the definitions of open access and open science, or even open research better. You may have, of course, noticed already, or you may have, of course, heard it from the different sessions earlier. But open access basically refers to the free, immediate, and online availability of research outputs. So documents such as journal articles, the books or the chapters within those books, in a fully digital environment. And open access is basically free and open to all without any hindrances or paywalls inhibiting access. So regardless of your association to your university, for example, or just being an average citizen of the world, open access allows you to gain access to research content that has been published within the realm of open access. Alternatively, on the side of it, open research goes beyond the boundaries of publications. So we're talking about things like data and code, or sometimes it's referred to as open knowledge. So not just the traditional journal articles themselves, but also the data and the information behind that research. That also is contributing towards the open research side. And for open science, or OS as is known, aims to open up access to all parts of the research process, including the methodology, the research section, the materials, across different subject areas to increase collaboration, disseminate knowledge, improve transparency and reproducibility of the work. So this, in practice, allows everyone to benefit from the research that would normally be hidden behind a paywall, and of course then only benefit people who have limited access to that content. And there is a difference. If sometimes open access is often confused as free access, as both terminologies can be interpreted in the same light. But I think in the sense of academic and research publication, open access means differently than free access. And free access is sometimes referring to contents that are not typically open access, but can be temporarily made free for the readers like yourselves. But it still has limitations in terms of the ability to share that content or what you can do with that content per se. And then it's also important to note that open access represents a funding shift in the academic and research environment or ecosystem. So under the subscription, or the old traditional ways of whereby researchers like yourself, if you wanted to get access to research content, you would typically have to have access to a subscription, usually through your university's library, for example, in order for you to gain access to journals and books that you want to access. But open access has flipped this on its head, and whereby the funding structure is mainly now focused on the author paying model. So open access can be plenty of things, or can be represented by plenty of things. From the context of journals, for example, we're talking there are things such as fully open access journals, whereby the entire journal itself lives as a fully open access publication. That means every article in that journal that it publishes, regardless of the article type or when it was published, is open access and therefore does not require any kind of subscription. There are also things, for example, called hybrid journals, where it is more an in between, meaning to say, uh, hybrid journals allow for the publication of open access articles, as well as articles that live behind a paywall that still require a subscription. So if you can imagine a journal that maybe publishes 100 articles per year, some of it will be open access, and if you do not have a subscription to that journal, you still can have free and immediate open access to those articles that are published as open access. Whereas the others who that live behind a paywall, you would still need a subscription. There are also journals called transformative journals, which proactively promote open access publishing, but still give a choice for authors to decide whether or not they want to do so. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, um, the mode or the format of publications is not limited to journals, and therefore there are even books or individual chapters within those books that can be made open access. And all of this, both formats in journals and books are visible or present within the Springer Nature portfolio, depending on, of course, the different titles and the different historical aspects of those titles itself. But aside from those traditional ones, there's of course things like open access data. So data that has been perhaps uploaded to a public repository that supports a particular open access publication, for example, that aims to allow more transparency in the work done within a particular research article, for example. There's often a misconception between open access and a traditional journal article, for example, in terms of with regards towards the quality of it, quality of the publications. I think for many years, there's often a misconception in the sense that open access or publishing as open access could jeopardize the approach or the publishing standards of the publisher. And I think it's safe to say for reputable publishers like Springer Nature, we ensure that the editorial, what do you call the editorial aspects of the publishing process or the peer review process, for example, is not jeopardized just because something is made open access. They are often the editorial aspects and the publication aspects or the funding aspects is often a separate matter and therefore does not jeopardize one another. So for a manuscript, for example, there are also different versions of a manuscript, and those different versions can also have different, can also be open access. So, for example, a preprint of a manuscript which has been uploaded to something like Research Square, for example, can be an open access format, although it's not necessarily a full-fledged journal article because it's not yet been peer reviewed and therefore have not gone through the entire editorial pathway. But even something like that can also be considered or can be treated and published as open access. So I think you may have heard by now and you would have explored and experienced yourselves in terms of the type of open access, not just the format of the publications, but the type of open access. There are also many different ones that you see in the marketplace or online, for example. There is gold open access, which is I think the gold standard of open access, meaning this is the version that published the version of the manuscript that has gone through the peer review process and has been accepted by the journal and is the nice typeset copy edited version with the DOI that is published on typically on the publisher's website, and that version is also then immediately and freely available online, right? So that's the gold standard. But there are also things like green open access and diamond open access and bronze open access, which offer slightly different capabilities. So, for example, Green open access refers to a manuscript whereby the copy edited, the nicely publisher accepted version is published on the publisher's website. It's not made immediately accessible. Usually there is an embargo, and perhaps the author accepted version, which is the one that isn't nicely typeset and copy edited, is the version that is kept in kind of a repository. So, for example, your university or your library's repository, and that author accepted version, albeit has already gone through the peer review process, is the one that is made freely available, right? And but it's not exactly the same version, and that is the one that is published on the publisher's website, which still then lives behind a paywall. And also, and for example, if you've heard of Diamond Open Access before, so this, at least in a sense, in the case of Spring and Nature, refers to certain journals or a model whereby a journal is often sponsored by an institution, by a funder that pays for the APCs or pays for the publication charges for articles that are published in that journal. But these are often very small cases, or the number of these type of journals don't exist greatly in terms of numbers. And Diamond Open Access is also it's also seen to be rather limited in time scale, in the sense that often these type of journals are not permanently funded, as the way funding structures work as well. So hybrid open access is similar to what I mentioned earlier in terms of transformative or hybrid journals. They offer the option for researchers like yourselves to be able to publish either version, either type, meaning if you wanted to make your article open access in that journal, you can. You're given that option. And it comes with the typical article publication charges or costs. Or alternatively, if you can't or if you do not wish to, you are still also given the opportunity to publish behind a paywall, whereby it traditionally does not come with any APC charges. So I think in the marketplace or in the industry, often what is the two main competing types of open access is gold and green. But from a publisher's perspective, from Spring and Nature, for example, we still think that gold open access is the best version, and not just best in terms of a publishing perspective, but also best for authors as well. This is due to several reasons. For example, again, in terms of the timing, gold open access allows for the paper to be immediately available once it is published, so there's no embargo period, as compared to green open access. It is the final published version of record. So again, the nicely beautified version, peer reviewed, editor accepted, nice typesetted, all images all nicely aligned. That with the DOI is the one that is published on the publisher's website, and that is easily cited, and the version that is often chosen to be cited, as compared to green OA, which, like I mentioned earlier, is usually the freely accessible version is usually the author accepted version. Gold open access, you would find the version of record on the publisher website, which is usually more visible, and is often shared, or you could find it easily on the internet, for example, right? Gold open access opens up to a path to open science. So like I said, usually that version that is published on the publisher's website is the one that can be interlinked with, let's say, an open source repository for the data sets, for the protocols, and those two can be bidirectionally linked to each other, which then promotes transparency and reproducibility of the work. Right? So it just makes it easier for the general community to scrutinize the research itself, and of course, if needed, to replicate them, and then for other researchers to benefit from them as well. So we're not, I represent Spring and Nature, is not just saying this, but we've also asked the researcher community, and it's been shown widely that the gold open access version of record is the one that is often chosen by researchers like yourself as the version that can be trusted, the one that is maintained and curated. So, for example, if there are updates or retractions or a newer version of the original article, that is then maintained by the publisher on the website itself. So it's the version that can be trusted in that sense, is the most up to date, and therefore when you cite it with confidence. And of course, whenever we talk about open access, and in particular goal open access, we often talk about the APCs. So APC again refers to the article processing charges. These are the fees that are charged to the authors, not the subscribers, for example, like the library, but to the individual authors who intend to publish their work in publications, journals or books that offer that pathway for open access publication, right? So the fees is author fronting, meaning it is often managed by the author. So it's the authors who make payment to the publishers, for example. But the funding behind that can, of course, come from many pathways. It can come from the authors themselves out of their own pockets. It can also be from the institutions who support or who provide grant funding, for example, to those authors, or even a larger funding group. So, for example, the government, right? So there are institutional funder agreements whereby an institution or an organization, for example, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, provides funding for certain groups of researchers in order to cover the cost of the article publication charges if they were to publish their papers as open access. So, I think a lot of you may have always wondered what are the APC costs for. And it's also important to note that publishers or legitimate publishers don't double dip. So when we collect payment for APCs, we do not then charge subscribers for access to your open access articles, right? Because you have paid the APCs, access to your content or your article on the publisher's website, because it is a gold open access article, is then made freely and publicly available. Therefore, we do not charge, or we cannot charge, or legitimate publishers do not charge access to your article, for example, once it's been made open access. But the APCs do cover the basic, runnings and in and outs of how a journal or a publication is run. This includes the marketing sense, the work that goes into the typesetting, the copy editing, maintenance of the website, for example, promotion of it, provision of tools for both you as authors when you do your submission, your corrections, etc., etc., and of course the people who work within the publishers itself. So if you're wondering where that funding often goes, it goes to these types of uses. So, at Springer Nature, we are a big believer, are a big supporter of open science because it creates more faster and more effective research systems that can be sustainable at scale. It builds more equitable research. So, for example, open access benefits everyone, regardless of your association to, for example, a very well-funded organization, or if you're just someone from a smaller institution. And it helps the world to work together to achieve more. And I think that is not better demonstrated than, for example, how a lot of research during the COVID-19 pandemic, albeit now a few years ago already, was demonstrated. So if you did not know, a lot of or all of COVID-19 related research, at least in Springer Nature, was made open access. And this helped to speed up the kind of discoveries and which led to solutions and, of course, things like vaccines. And this would not, and scientists would not be able to come up with all of this as quickly as they did if not any of the research were made open access in the first place. So transitioning to open access and open research is important. And I believe many of you support this, and which is why you're here to listen to the various publishers and how you can get involved in that as well. Because you too want to benefit not just for yourself personally, but you want also the kind of innovation, solutions, and discoveries that you discover through the research that you do, the work that you do, so that the greater community can benefit from them as well. And when we say benefit, at Springer Nature, we're not just talking for those of us here within the typical research institution. So, for example, librarians, researchers like yourselves, students, or the universities, but we're also talking about people beyond the academic space, beyond people who are not associated with a research organization. So, we're talking about our community, our government, non-profit organizations, etc., etc. Everyone benefits from open science together. So from all of you and us here within the traditional research ecosystem, you get benefits like more people viewing your content because it's publicly available, and typically we've seen up to 6 times higher for OA articles compared to their counterparts in the subscription space. It also then leads to higher citations on average. And of course, this then gives more recognition to the authors who have published their work. And then this enables greater interdisciplinary research, more collaboration with local and international partners for you, more career development, better grant funding, etc., etc. But for the rest of us outside of that system, for example, non-profit organizations who typically don't have the kind of funding to have subscription access to very expensive journals or databases, they too can also now, because of the research that has been published open access, benefit and utilize the kind of research that has been published as OA, and they drive the differences or the application of those research in our general community, right? So at Springer Nature, we've been doing OA been involved in OA for more than 20 years, and we've surpassed more than 1.25 million of articles published as Go OA. And like I said, more than at least half of our primary research that has been published is open access. And we've been supporting millions of authors to publish open access throughout these last 20 years, including those of you from UNIMAP or even Malaysia as well. So open access has been proven, like I said, to benefit many aspects of the society, like yourselves as researchers and authors, for the librarians and institutions, and also for society and the general advancement of the science that you are interested in, right? So we're committed to transforming into an OA organization, and we do that in 4 aspects, or by doing 4 things. So we focus on Goal OA. We invest into our fully OA portfolio as well by launching new journals, for example. We innovate and to ensure equity. So we find ways to not just benefit very well-funded individuals within the research space, but also solutions whereby that would be benefiting everyone from the demographic within the research ecosystem. And we're also transitioning our hybrid portfolios eventually hopefully into fully open access as well, via something called transformative agreements, which have gone live in Malaysia, and I'll share a little bit more after this. So we are focusing on Go OA, like I said, and because this is the version that we believe has the biggest impact, and we've seen already benefits of this to the society. So a larger growth in downloads from our open access content, as opposed to over 100 years worth of subscription-based content. And this increase of usage is often found or often coming from lower income or lower middle income parts of the world, whereby access or funding to provide access to subscription content is often much lower than the more developed part of the world. Again, like I said, we're also proud of our full OA portfolio. So we've launched more than 600 fully open access across 3 imprints. I think this number has even grown ever since, and we will continue to do so as we also transition more of our portfolio into open access. So in terms of innovating to ensure equity, we will touch on a little bit more about the TAs later, but we also come up with different innovations, such as, again, diamond open access journals. We try different models to, again, ensure different parts of society is catered to, or sometimes we even provide waivers for researchers from lower income or lower middle income countries. And then finally, of course, there's the transformative agreements, which now has then also taken place in Malaysia. So you may have heard of, from at least a Springer Nature standpoint, that we've embarked on a Springer Nature, a Springer Transformative Agreement for the 20 public universities. And essentially, what is that? Basically, think of it as a contract or an agreement between us at Springer Nature with the Ministry of Higher Education, as well as your 20 public universities, to provide a means whereby, um, for you as authors, access to an abundant wealth of resources that were traditionally not accessible to you, so that you can consume content and then do your research. And then at the end of that pathway, provide a means for you to publish your research findings in our portfolio of hybrid journals as open access articles. And there are many benefits in doing so, which is why we've embarked on this journey with Malaysia. And of many of which is, again, it maximizes access to content that was not necessarily accessible to all of you in previous years. It's more sustainable, in the sense that it opens up greater capacity for institutions and authors like yourselves, and helps to drive costs down, because through economies of scale, it's also more equitable. So it doesn't, TAs don't, are not subject focus or market segment focus. It applies to everyone within your institution, and of course still adheres to the ethical and quality standards of publications that we've always had, regardless of OA or not. So TAs remove the ambiguity and provides a clear path for you as authors, as they act as a way of a mandate for you to publish open access, because your institutions, the government, now supports you to do so, and you no longer worry essentially about the funding for APCs, as that is taken care for you through the TAs under your institution, so that you can fully concentrate on doing what you do best, which is to do research and to write papers. And through the system and the technology that you encounter when you're trying to publish in our portfolio, it makes it simpler, more straightforward, more direct, saves time, and allows for your institution to also, not to say track, but also to monitor the progress of the research coming out from your institutions that they obviously support through grant funding as well. So we believe we have a best-in-class workflow for you authors, and what we try to do is, of course, make it as streamlined, as seamless for you to do your work, and to provide, to make it easier for you to, of course, publish as open access through a system that is applied in the university, and you encounter it when you're attempting to publish with us as well. So just some highlights of the TA which was announced earlier in May this year, which obviously covers the 20 institutions, including UNIMAP. And I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight some of the already successes of this initiative that are coming from the university, your university. So this first one is an example. This article, which was published by Ahmad Anas and co. And his collaborators. This was published in the Journal of Food and Bioprocess Technology. As you can see, it's been published only not very long ago, since July, and it's already received 1,241 accesses, meaning 1,241 individuals or people have come to the platform, to the website, looked for this journal, and actually downloaded and read a copy of this paper. And if you're familiar with how quickly or how slowly these kind of metrics are measured, you will notice that in such a short period of time, this kind of number of accesses or visibility of the paper is quite astounding. And this has also led to 3 citations already for this particular paper in this very short period of time. Here's another one in the Journal of Material Science, Materials in Electronics. This one is published even more recently, only on the early part of September, and it's already received over 580 downloads or accesses, as we call it, and has even recorded 1 altmetric score. So altmetric, if you're not familiar, basically measures impact of the publication, in this case not the journal but the article itself, outside of the traditional sense of like citations, for example. So it could be how many times this article was mentioned in social media, how many times this article was met or cited in a public document used as a policy paper in government or in parliament, for example, or how many times this particular article was mentioned in a news broadcast or even the newspaper column, etc., etc. So as you can see, it's articles that are made open access have not just gained wider visibility, but impact beyond the traditional academic realm. So this one, even more recent. So this one, I would say exactly a month ago, on the 23rd of September. This one published in the Journal of International Entrepreneurship has also received over 500 accesses already. So to all of the researchers from UNIMED who are contributing to these journals, I congratulate you if you're here. And of course, I hope this will serve also as an encouragement to the many of you who may be thinking of publishing your work with us, and of course taking advantage of the open access pathway that is provided through our portfolios. Just another interesting statistic to share. So I showed you, on the individual standpoint in terms of the few journal articles that gain a lot of popularity or visibility. This slide actually tries to show you where are the readership or the visibility coming from. And of course, this data set is inclusive or beyond just those few articles that I showed you. And essentially, this is representing all of the open access publications that have gone through the Springer TA ever since May. And even in the first 11 weeks, you can see that in terms of viewership, where is Malaysian research, your research, for example, going, who are reading your papers, right? So we've been able to track, and what's interesting is not just the geographic regions of the people reading your content, but the type of people reading the content. So if you pay attention to the blue bars on the chart here, it shows you that the majority, 73.37% of readers of the articles that were published in open access in our portfolio that are coming from Malaysia, they are from readers that are outside of the traditional research ecosystem. The orange bars represent the institutions, organizations that we have a record of. We have their IP addresses. That means we know who they are. And traditionally, these are research organizations. And therefore, the blue ones are that of the general public. So, organizations or individuals who are not associated with a traditional research organization. And you can see that open access research in this aspect is affecting and impacting more people beyond the traditional academic ecosystem. So that's all for my presentation, and hopefully that gives you some background on open access with Springer Nature, a little bit about the benefits, the definitions, and I wanted to save this other half of the session with maybe about 20 minutes that we have left in order to provide any kind of consultation, basically answering questions that you may have. Depending on the questions, we may even jump on live onto the platform and hopefully help you out with any kind of questions or issues you may be facing, or you wanted to know how to actually start on the bandwagon. We can do that right now with the rest of the session. So I'm going to end the presentation first. excuse me. Yep. And then move towards asking questions or answering questions from the room. Okay, so you can either choose to unmute your mic, ask me straight away, but maybe use the raise hand function first so that we can take turns, or you can always raise your questions in the chat and I may ask maybe Encik Fadli to help me read out those questions as I may need to jump between my browser or my slides again. So please, I will welcome any questions from you from the room right now. Go ahead. Or if you wanted to raise out, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll call you out and then you can unmute and ask us.
Hello, Mr. Ken.
Hi.
I'm Fahana.
Hi, Farhana.
I would like to ask you, since that I just submitted my papers, but
Mhm.
Indonesia. But the thing is, before I submit it, I choose is not open access.
I see.
Okay, now I get it. My paper is accepted. So
Okay.
is it possible I can change it to open access?
May I know? You mentioned that your paper was already accepted, meaning
Yes,
you received a kind of confirmation email or some kind of notice
yes,
from the
email.
journal itself. Okay,
Yes,
that's
email.
great. Has your paper already been published online? Do you know
Not
if it's
yet. Not
not yet,
yet.
right?
Because he said that the managing will contact me soon.
Okay,
All
okay.
right.
So
Is that
you
possible? I can change it, the the selection.
sure. Of course, it depends on which publication, which journal you have submitted to. You need to check whether or not that particular journal has the ability to publish open access or not. There is still a small number of journals in our portfolio that can only publish behind a paywall. That means it's a fully subscription type journal. So just check if it's a hybrid, then yes, you have the ability to still change. To my knowledge, that you still have chance to change your decision as long as it's not published yet. But if it's a fully open access journal, then I think eventually you are only given the option. So, but from what I can tell, your question, I think you have not yet gone to the production stage, which means you should still have the chance. How that can be done is once you have received the formal notification, usually through an email, it will look like a notice that says, "Dear Dr. Fahana, thank you for your paper. Your paper has been titled so and so and so. You have submitted to this journal so and so and so, has been accepted. We now can move towards the production stage. You then need to do a few steps. Basically, you have to confirm your affiliation and then choose your publication mode, meaning you want to make it open access or you want to keep it as a non-open access article. So wait for that notification. If you don't get it in the near future if you have been waiting for quite some time, you of course have the right to write back to the editor and ask what is the status of your paper and how long do you have to wait, or is there something else you have to do. So that would be my advice.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ken.
You're
It's very
welcome.
good information.
Thank you. Thanks. Anybody else?
Mr. Ken, maybe you can show us from the platform where they can search for the list of the journal that they can select, where is the open access, one the goal, and then so on.
Okay. Just give me a second. Let me open that up. There are two ways to go about this. First and foremost, you can, maybe it's better if I do this first. So, of course, you can just go to our platform, and I suggest to go to Springer Nature link. You can Google it, because you can Google Springer Nature link or type link.springer.com. And when you're here, you will notice that that the platform has several tabs, or you can even find a journal. But what essentially you want to do is to find a paper that is, of course, relevant or matches your manuscript. And once you've done so, you want to identify what kind of publishing pathways that it allows for. So maybe let's say I look for something related to artificial intelligence. I'm going to search for a journal that is relevant to this, to this topic. Let me just do so, and you can follow. So you can see already here that once I have filtered artificial intelligence, I look for journals that are related or have the term AI in it. You can see that it already has an indication of what kind of journal this is. So this one in particular, called Discover Artificial Intelligence, is a fully open access journal. Same for the ones here. But if I, for example, go to this one, Annals of Mathematics and AI, you can see on the screen that its publishing model is hybrid. And based on the slides that I demonstrated earlier, this should then tell you that this journal has the ability to publish both open access articles and subscription-based or articles that live behind a paywall. So if you opt for, in the case of Dr. Farhana, I apologize if I just use your paper as an example, but in the case of Dr. Farhana's paper, for example, earlier, you are given the option to choose whichever one you wanted to. Now, of course, I think since you are attending sessions like today, you are very much interested in making your manuscripts open access. And all of these decisions only come into the fore after you have been editorially accepted by the journal itself. So that means the process of you submitting your paper, going through peer review, and being accepted by the paper is the same, regardless of whether you want to publish your paper open access or not. Now, of course, if you submitted to a pure open access paper, much like the one earlier, maybe I can just move to that. So for example, this one, you know that it's already fully open access. This means this tells you that your only option to publish in this paper is open access. And therefore you cannot make a decision otherwise, right? And the same goes for subscription-based journals, where the only option is to publish your paper as a article that lives behind a paywall, and therefore there is no APCs associated with it. So hopefully that helps you. You can, of course, if you're interested in knowing or getting like a full list that is relevant to the transformative agreement and is covered under the TAs, what you could also do is look up I'm going to change the share screen now. Look up a slightly different website, which I will show you here. So you can just Google Springer Nature Open Access Agreement for Malaysia, and you would find this website. And here there is a list at the bottom of a list of eligible journals that are part of this initiative, which means if you download this list, essentially it's a very big Excel file that tells you the current list of hybrid journals that has the ability to publish open access articles, whereby the APCs are covered by your institution under this arrangement with Springer Nature. Of course, there are certain terms and conditions and criteria that you still need to adhere to, including meeting the minimum standards of the publication itself. So you still have to get accepted by the journal first, then only it will come into consideration, much like how I explained to Dr. Farhana's example earlier. Okay, so you can use this website as a means to do so, and I would treat this as a version of truth, as this list is often updated. As you may or may not know, journals tend to move between hybrid, not hybrid, fully open access from time to time. So this is a good way of getting a comprehensive list that is updated on the publisher's website itself. Okay, so hopefully I have addressed that question, Jeff Ali. I can open it up to anybody else. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Fana. If it's hybrid, then you definitely have the opportunity to do so. And of course, if you get a little bit confused or need some help or some clarification, I encourage every one of you to reach out to your library. They are a very good source of information to help you out with this. And they do have a team dedicated to supporting researchers like yourselves to go through some of these more technical aspects of the submission process. They are quite familiar with it, and they have already helped quite several of your own colleagues to get to overcome those hurdles already. Any other questions? Maybe I stop presenting first.
Any other question from our participant? I think we have 5 to 10 minutes more.
Yeah. And I can stay longer if necessary. So do not worry. We are the last session today, so we're not going to interrupt somebody else. Yeah. So I imagine some of you are on screen now, searching through the platform or looking at manuscripts that you may have already submitted and checking whether hybrid or not hybrid, subscription or fully open access. That's good. That's good practice that we want to inculcate. And like I said, we're here to consult. So if you have any doubt in whatsoever, please raise it to us right now.
Hello, Mr. Ken.
Hi.
I want to ask, so moving on from here onwards, is any articles from the eligible institutions
Mm-hmm.
who wants to publish in Springer, so we either going to publish as fully OA or hybrid or transformative?
Okay. So if I think we maybe can break this down discussion into 2 different parts. And the first one, I think, is the most obvious one, which is if you want to benefit from the TA, the transformative agreement, you need to be, first of all, a corresponding author who is affiliated or associated with one of the 20 public universities, so UNIMAP being one of them. And when I mean corresponding author, it means you, within your group of collaborators, when you have written a paper, you are the one who is submitting to the journal. You are the one taking responsibility of creating a profile, submitting to the journal, interacting with the editors and the peer reviewers, responding and making changes and whatnot. As long as you've submitted to, and you're the corresponding author, you've submitted to an eligible journal that I showed you earlier, and you have then chosen open access, your submission, your paper, after it's been editorially accepted by the journal, goes to your university for them to just basically validate and approve your submission. And because it's gone to a hybrid journal and you've chosen open access, if it meets the criteria, all of those above, the university would approve it, and therefore your paper goes directly to publication and becomes an open access article in a hybrid journal. Okay, and you don't have to care about the APC cost. It's taken care on behalf of you. It doesn't mean there's no cost. There is a cost, but it's not burdened on you as the individual or the authors any longer. But this is different, and this is the second part of the question. This is different if it were a fully open access journal. So the TAs don't cover fully open access journals at this point. And the fully open access journals, the number of them, of course, is smaller than the hybrids. The hybrids, we're talking about 2,000 over titles you can choose from in terms of the eligible list, and therefore should give you more potential and more coverage for you to submit to. But if you were submitting to a fully open access journal, and therefore your only option is to publish open access, it is still following the old traditional pathway, which is there is no TA, obviously, and that means you would be responsible to take care of the APC for that journal, for that publication. So how it will work is you agree to, after you've done peer review, been accepted, you move on to publication. You will be given an invoice for the APC, which you then have to then take care of first before they can publish your paper online. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Anybody else? I just wanted to, and this just crossed my mind. I think one thing I maybe perhaps not have mentioned in the slide is probably about the flow of which open access. I mean, how the APCs are managed and are requested for. I think in most legitimate and reputable publishers, when you're submitting to a hybrid journal, for example, whereby you're given the option to choose OA or not, reputable publishers like Springer Nature do not approach you to pay for something before your paper has been editorially accepted. And this falls into the realm already when we're talking about things like predatory journals and publishers. So I think it's a good standard or practice to know that, in the sense that what's important first and foremost is always the quality of the manuscript. And regardless whether OA or not, editor's main job is to make sure that your manuscripts that you submit to them meets the standards that are set forth by that journal. Regardless of whether you want to make it open access or not, or regardless whether there is payment involved or not. So whether the TA is in existence or there is no TA, the question about the APCs will only come about after your paper has been accepted, and never or should never be before. So that's always a good rule of thumb to also take note of. Okay. Is there anything else I can help you guys with? I'm sure you've gone through quite a lot today already, if you've attended a few of the sessions. I see a question. Can share some tips to accept the paper, right? I think this is regarding the peer review part, and of course, choosing the right journal to submit to, without going into a very lengthy conversation, which can generally take over an hour. I think some important or very good quick fire tips is, for example, make sure you submit to a right journal. Obviously, you would know your manuscript best, and what's worthwhile to do a little bit of homework is, when choosing a journal to submit to, know what are the realms or the guidelines or the kind of topics that journal will accept. So do that. And then, of course, follow any kind of formatting that is necessary to avoid being rejected for the sake of formatting or technicalities, so you save your time. And then, of course, when it comes to the peer review part, of course, I think many an author will say that that is probably the most challenging aspect of the whole publication journey. And I think you should, number one, respond in a timely manner. Number two, understand that you're dealing with human beings on the other side, whether it's the editor or the reviewers themselves. And therefore, you ought to treat any response objectively and respond accordingly. Be very tidy in your work, be very timely in your work, in your response. And in doing so, should be able to cut down the time that you are going to be accepted or even rejected. So again, rejection doesn't necessarily mean you have a bad paper, but rejection can sometimes just mean simply it's a good paper, but just not for this journal, for example. So sometimes it's a blessing that journals tell you very quickly, doesn't work for this one, and therefore you save the time avoiding a very lengthy review, and you can very quickly shift gears to find another journal or a title, whether it's Springer or not Springer, it doesn't matter, but one that would more suit your manuscript. Yeah, so I think those are some quick fire tips that we can give. And all of the information you would ever need to decide on a journal can always be found on the homepage of the journal in the publisher's website. So, aims and scope, who are the editors involved, what their backgrounds are, what they're looking for, any special issues, any requirements in terms of formatting, everything is always listed there. I hope I've answered that question.
All right, I think can we have one last question?
You're welcome, Mariam. I wish you all the best in finding a new paper, a new journal submitter.
I think there's no there's no more question. I think, Mr. Ken. But maybe if you may share your contact number or email if they have any question, or
Absolutely.
they can ask the library, but maybe you can also share
Sure, sure.
your email.
Oh, sorry. Let me try and share my email address on the screen. Oh, something wrong. I tell you what, I'll just write it down in the chat. Seems like there's something preventing me from sharing my screen again. So I've put my email in the chat. And of course, if you encounter any issues, not just about the topic for today, but if you wanted to ask anything related to Springer Nature, please go ahead and feel free to reach out to me or even your librarian. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we can wrap up our session for today. Okay, for the last session for the open access week seminar for today. And thank you, Mr. Kenya, for being a nature representative for the whole ideas and all the publishing ideas, and also the all the tips regarding the publishing process and information shared for the whole session. I hope our all participants can have the fruitful session for today. And then I think that's all for me, and I hope in the future we can host this the same session like today, maybe next year. Okay, for the open access week for the Springer, and also maybe we can also hold the physical session. Okay, so there will be more interactive question and session. Okay, with our participants. Right, and with that, I thank you again, Mr. Kenyap, and also all the participants for attending this today's session. And we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jumpa lagi. Take care, everyone, and good luck in your publication journey. All the best. Bye-bye.